Is Deputy Willie Penrose. Question number 80.
Can the Minister... sorry, which one?
Question 80.
Sorry, my apologies. Oh yeah, the miscellaneous provisions bill. Minister, when do you intend to introduce this bill in the Channel? Because I think it was last July we passed it, so it's an urgently needed piece of legislation.
Thanks, Deputy, and I'm pleased to confirm that the bill is scheduled for second stage in the Channel on the 20th of November next week and committee stage on the 28th of November. I'm currently considering a small number of amendments, some of which are drafting or indeed actually just technicalities, but they'll be brought forward at the committee stage, and I'll clarify the position during the second stage debate in the Channel. I think, as we all know, the bill delivers on the commitment in the programme for partnership government to tackle the problems caused by increased casualisation of work and to strengthen the regulations around precarious work. This, I think, as we all know, is a very important piece of legislation, the key objective of which is to improve the security and the predictability of working hours for employees on insecure contracts and those working variable hours in all sectors of employment. Good progress has been made over the last number of years in terms of our economic recovery and creating new job opportunities, and the majority of which are full-time positions, which is great. But we must remember those people who, not by choice, are in less secure arrangements and may not know from week to week what hours they're working. This makes it very difficult for people to plan their lives outside of work, and the bill is going to significantly improve the employment protections for all of those people. I genuinely want to see this bill complete its passage to the Oireachtas as quickly as possible in the current session, and I think if we all really work closely together, we'll get this out of the Shannon and back into the Dáil and get it completed before Christmas, so as we can actually deliver for the people who are in those precarious situations this
Deputy
year.
Penrose.
Thank you, Minister. I'm glad to see this is a very important piece of legislation. We're all put our backs behind to make sure that it is accelerated and becomes law. Minister, I know you've reviewed a number of aspects of the bill as passed here, but I was just wondering, have you looked again at the various arguments that were made here in the Dáil by ourselves and the Labour Party and a number of my colleagues in the other parties to deal with the if and when contracts? Because these, if these are not dealt with, these rotten arrangements will become the weapon of choice for bad employers. That's the worry. I mean, it's perfect. There's a lot of good employers. There's thousands and thousands of very good employers who work and work well with their employees. But and you're right. There's very welcome elements of the proposed new legislation, and many of them are drawn from the proposal that my colleague Jed Nash brought forward to the government in late 2015. But it seems that most workers, Minister, trapped in the if and when inspired work of that nature will continue to be treated as a casual form of work. And this would deny them access to important reforms because it would not be classified as an employee in the first place.
Thank you, Deputy.
So I'm just wondering, for example, if and when workers would not be able to request to be placed in an appropriate band of hours to better reflect the reality of the hours to work like other workers. So have you given any thought to that?
Thank you, Deputy Minister.
Thanks, Deputy. And yeah, we've given loads of thought, because each of the main elements of this bill will improve the employment protections for people on if and when contracts. The banded hours provision, for example, will apply to somebody on an if and when contract, so that if they've worked an average of number of hours over the previous 12-month reference period, they'll be entitled to be placed on the band of hours that reflects the realities of those hours that have been worked. The amendments to the Terms of Employment Information Act will require employers to inform their employees, including those on if and when arrangements, by the 5th day of commencing employment, what the employer reasonably expects the normal length of the working day will be and the working week will be. And employers will also be required to state the expected duration of their contract and whether that contract is fixed or temporary. Employees on if and when contracts will also benefit from the new minimum compensation provisions, where they're given notice of hours of work but don't receive those hours. They will have to be given their 2 hours compensation in lieu of the work that they haven't been given. And finally, employees on if and when contracts will also benefit from the anti-penalisation provisions, so that if an employer penalises them for exercising their rights under this Act, they'll be entitled to pursue the matter under the WRC.
Thank you, Minister. Deputy Penrose.
There is a significant gap to be filled, urgently, Minister, given hope and dignity to a cohort of workers who need to be brought in from the code and given some hope for the future. And we in the Labour Party have certainly not changed our policy reviews in relation to the if and when contract scenario. And indeed, my colleague Jed Nash will be tabling amendments to the legislation in order to address this problem in the Channel, and particularly that where a period of employment has to be calculated, casual work should be included in the calculation if the casual worker was employed on a regular or systematic basis, and if during the period of service the worker has a reasonable expectation of ongoing employment by the same employer. I think that's important, because the law must have regard to basic facts of work and life, such as whether the employee was offered work regularly, whether the employee generally accepted work when it was offered, and whether, although the amount of work offered might vary, there was a pattern or system to the work offered each week. Those are important and essential components and indicia of a situation that should be, shall we say, comprehended and captured within the bill. And that is the one amendment that I can signal already that Senator Nash will be placing before on the bill.
Thank you, Deputy Minister, to conclude on this matter.
Yeah, I would tend to tell you, Deputy, that I will disagree. Now, I haven't seen the amendment already, but I have spoken to the Senator. I will disagree with what he's attempting to do. Jed wants us to ban if and when contracts. And simply, there are so many industries in this country, and government being one of them, we couldn't live without if and when contracts. And so what I don't want to do is to make life difficult for industry to be able to carry on their normal business. But what we won't tolerate is for people who are working on if and when contracts to not have the same employment protections as everybody else. And so what I would genuinely like to see is that I'm prepared to move a bit this way if you're prepared to move this way. I can't countenance banning them, even if you all gang up on me, because there is going to be huge backlash. But we try and maybe achieve the same thing, which is providing in provisions in law the protection for the people who are currently working in those circumstances. I think we might have a win-win.